Hey TV fans, Bored Now back with you. On this video I'm going to be talking about Starfleet Academy Season 1 Episode 7. The episode is called Kalo Zen, so full spoilers from the start of this review, and I expected a little bit of a come down after last week's dramatic big episode. TV shows do this a lot, where the next episode, as I said, is a bit of a more relaxed episode, a little bit more of a filler episode, and this is definitely that. Unfortunately, as filler episodes go, it's not one of the best. In fact, I've got very little to say about the episode, really, because it just feels like a little bit of like going through the motions. Like, not much that happens in the episode really means that much. I wasn't particularly that engaged with the storyline. I expected a bit more of a fallout and reaction from last week. You do get it a little bit. You pick up a bit with Caleb, how he's feeling. Like, Tamina's now out of the coma, but he hasn't spoken to her since the event itself. Sam, like, she's still feeling the aftershocks a bit, where she's like glitching in and out a bit, which she seems to have gotten over by the end of the episode. A bit of a fluff of an episode. It's very sort of middling, and like I said, I wasn't really that into anything much that was going on over spring break, and the cadets get to go off on holiday. Plots that we focus on is that Caleb and Genesis both decide to call off their plan, decide to hang around together. They're both quite bored. They open up, like he opens up about the Tamina stuff, and Genesis opens up about her sort of nerves and anxiety about trying to live in her father's shadow, to try and live up to what he was as like a Starfleet captain. Because one of the things in this episode is the Naki, who was impressed with how Genesis stepped up last week and kept quite a cool head. She says, well, I'm fast tracking you. I'm putting an application into Starfleet for you to be like, I guess not exactly the captain, like, or a captain, but at least to be put onto a program where you'll do your training to be a captain. So that's a big deal for Genesis, whose father was also a captain. But that becomes a big thing with her in the episode. Break into the bridge, and she says, I just want to play around and act like I'm the captain, practice this, but it turns out there's like an ulterior motive, and it's to do with her application, because she's nervous about the part of the application where it's a reference from her parents, because she's not confident that's going to be like the best sort of reference. Aaron, who gets whisked away to this other planet, and Jaden sees him get taken, so he thinks, oh, he's been kidnapped, I better follow him. So he follows him through this portal when they end up on this other planet, and the twist there is that it turns out he's been whisked back to his home planet, where he is set to be married, and this was something that was arranged years ago. Childhood best friend, so she comes from royalty, and it was all arranged all these years ago, but originally it was going to be much later. And she brings up the reason she's doing it now is because her mother had a health scare. So it's this idea that he's been whisked away, but does he really want this life? And Jaden, who kind of gets like roped into being his best man, has to try and deal with that as well. And there's a little bit of tension. I'll say this, I didn't even realise that Jaden was with the other guy, Kyle, I think his name is. I didn't realise that they were actually in a relationship, so there's a little bit of tension there. But yeah, no, I just thought it was a bit of a nothing episode. Like, not a lot really meant much. So like, when they go to this other planet, I didn't really care about the tension of it. I actually think Darren is one of the more blander characters on the show. I think it came out a little bit in this episode, but you know, I mean, when it was revealed, okay, like, you're gonna be the best man, like Jaden, and that's how they revealed it, and it's like a wedding thing. It's like, okay, yeah, that was fun, but you know, not a lot else. Female who he's meant to get married to, Darren, and she's fine, she's likable enough, but it's the whole thing is just, it's meant to be more amusing than it actually is. It's meant to be like more interesting than it actually is. And it's so predictable that he's not going to get married, and just the way they're playing up this whole tension with him and Jaden, I thought was just pretty forced and just a little bit on the bland side. And they go for the whole thing where they do actually get married at the ceremony, but then she realises that, because it's when Jaden gives a best man speech, and in the previous scene, him and Darren have had like a falling out and a fight about their cultures and their different paths, but Jaden does the right thing and gives the speech, and it's in that speech where she realises that, hey, these two probably have feelings for each other, or at the very least, then Darren's future path should be in Starfleet, it shouldn't be this. So she does the honourable thing and says, well, why don't you annul the wedding right now, because I know this isn't right for you. And she takes it on the chin quite well, because you can see she's still cut up about it, and he's lying to her really about, no, I want this, like you're the one I want. But yeah, it just meant nothing in the end, like, because it was predictable that he wasn't going to end up married to her, because it would mean he probably would have to go out of the show. But then just to have the wedding as a fake out, and then it just gets reversed minutes later, I think that's just really cheap as well, and nothing really meant that much. I think they at least could have stretched that out a little bit and done something with it, but just the forced drama of the whole thing was pretty bad. Some of the stuff with Genesis and Caleb, like them just goofing around, I thought was a little bit like twee and annoying, and I think you get this stuff sometimes, not just in this show, but just in Modern Trek, where I think you get what feels like characters messing around just for like comedy beat. So like the scene in this episode where they break into like the science lab and they almost get caught by Reno, and there's a little bit of a comedy beat where she's having a back and forth with Luna, comparing their injuries over like the calm. Stands out as this is, we're doing the comedy beat. Like, even if it was a funny comedy beat, which I don't think this was really, but even if it was, I think it just feels and it sticks out and is a little bit forced. Where I think if you go back to the best examples of this in like other Trek shows or in other TV, I think a lot of times the best comedy is just where it naturally comes through the characters or the situation. A lot of the comedy in the episode I didn't really care for. I don't think we learned that much with Genesis and Caleb overall. Like, those actors have pretty good chemistry, and Genesis has definitely been one of the standouts of the show. The Genesis actress does a good job kind of selling, as I said, the anxiety over her father and the whole pressure. Just didn't think the way this episode was written was really that compelling or that convincing. Like, it just felt like we went from one thing to the other really quickly without like that much of a reason. And because it's almost like when she tricks him into like getting her into the bridge, she jumped to that pretty fast. Because when Aki put her forward earlier in the episode, said, I'm putting your application to Starfleet, like, she didn't really seem to have any sort of like a negative reaction to that. Sort of resolved by the end, because they do get caught by Reno. Aki's reaction is fine, like the way she handles it is fine. You made a mistake, I'm not going to kick you out of the academy, but I am going to suspend your application to Starfleet for the captain thing, so you won't get put forward for that anymore, and you two have to serve community service. Now, if they do something like that too often and she keeps letting them off, I think it would be a problem. But I think this one time, at least she did punish them. Eventually, Caleb does work up the courage to send a message to Tamina. Like, Genesis gives him a bit of a pep talk, and so that's all fine. And once again, I think they're planting the seeds a little bit. Then there could be a thing between Genesis and Caleb. I hope we're not going to go too far down the road with like these love triangles. There's really not much to talk about. It is a little bit of a dud, a little bit of a filler episode. Probably not terrible, but really forgettable, this episode, I thought. So that's Starfleet Academy, episode 7. Let me know what you guys think of it. If you disagree, let me know. Like and subscribe. Hit the hype button. You can also donate with a super thanks if you want to on this video. Back with more TV, more film reviews as well soon. But thanks everyone. Take care. Bye.